Welcome, everyone. Sunday afternoon speakers. And welcome also Zoomers out there. We're glad to have you with us. It's with great appreciation that we, the residents of Protection Island, acknowledge this land as the unceded territory of its Nanaimo First Nation and of their legacy throughout the island. First of all, thank yous go to Peter, who came yesterday to set up the chairs and make the coffee. He didn't actually turn the coffee on. Anyways, but it's Nell's birthday today, and so he's off with her. So that's nice. So, and Emily, thank you for Zoom and recording, and for organizing the guides, which are here and will help you if you need some help over at the table. They'll put out your stuff. Snack donations this week are to the PI players who require funds to purchase scripts and props and stuff like that. And we all get tremendous enjoyment from the plays. And now it's Raul Herrera. And his topic for the day is the exciting world of film and acting. Raul was born in Mexico City. He lived there until age 28, modeling and doing commercials. At the age of 24, he placed 6th in the Mr. Mexico pageant.
Many years and many pounds.
Raul's formal education was at the University of Monterrey in Mexico City, where he achieved a BA in international relations. This would help him in his other job, which is Director of Global Sales and Marketing for an education technology company, and for which he travels extensively to the Middle East, Europe, Asia, and South America. But his heart was in acting. So he moved to Canada in 2004, where he continued in TV and commercials, and took acting classes at the Vancouver Actors Foundry under Matthew Harrison. On the advice of his agent, he also spent time in the US, where the Latino profile is very vibrant. His most popular claim to fame is as the supervillain Sargon, the sorcerer, in The Flash, which is a TV show on CW Network, and which is broadcast in 25 languages. The show is based on the 1950s comic strip. Some of you may know it. Raul is married to Deanna. They have one daughter who will be moving back in September. And this has prompted thoughts of a move closer to Victoria. However, we hope they don't go. Please welcome Raul Herrera.
I told my daughter that I was gonna play that song as dance in public. So thank you all for coming. Very, very excited to be here. Hi to all the Zoomers. Thank you for watching. And thank you for the Alliance Club for allowing me to have this chat. Ben, Emily, Rick, and everyone else that made this possible. I wanted to play that song for many reasons before everything else. One of them is because even though I have been doing this for many, many years, I still get nervous, right? To talk in public and all the eyes watching me, and that is like, yeah. So this loosens up, it brings the energy up and helps in many other ways. It also helps you to, start in a different mode. I think this chat today is a little bit different than what we've seen in the past. I saw a few that were super interesting and very, I learned a lot of stuff about parasites and satellites and beautiful stuff. But this one has more like an entertaining tone. So I want to start more with an entertaining mode. But the last thing is, who here is a fellow thespian actress? Theater? Perfect. So that's exactly, you will understand a little bit more. When somebody comes and starts clapping and starts dancing, some people want to do it and join in, and some people are like, oh, who here wanted to clap or move, and who actually moved? Who wanted to but did it. And we just didn't want. It's like this. What a groove dancing there on the. Okay, so that's exactly wanted to show you time where some people that was me before. Right? I wanted to do a lot of things, but the fear of judgment, the fear of failure, and many other fear, the fear of the unknown, being ridiculed in public, stopped me from doing it. And one of the things I discovered with acting is this is very liberating when you do that. And so what I thought for this talk was to bring you on my journey, how I started. You heard a couple of things of my past, but I wanted to bring you the journey and how I discovered things for myself, for life, and for the craft itself. So starting, yes, I'm from Mexico City, as you can tell. And how I got into it, I'm not the story of that I hear sometimes when I watch other actors talking about their life story. They're like, oh, since I'm 3 years old, I wanted to be an actor. And I used to do like plays with my family. And I'm not that person. I actually was not involved in this world whatsoever until when I was in university. I actually kind of like didn't understand it. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that, but I didn't like it also, right? So as Bev was saying, I was lucky to be in the Mr. Mexico pageant. And it's like, it was many years and many pounds ago. But it was one of those where my story is life kind of put me there, right? I didn't apply for it. It just happened. They're like, hey, we need another guy. Can you join? So we start tomorrow. I was like, no, yeah, please, okay. And I just jumped in. And that decision, there has been 2 decisions in my life for this world that has changed the whole trajectory of my career and my life. That was one of it, because when I said yes, I didn't know all the things that were going to change in the future based on that decision. So I ended up in the Mr. Mexico pageant. It's a whole story. We don't have time today. Maybe another time, but with 0 experience, I ended up in this 1,000 people theater with the Televisa, which is the largest network in Mexico, cameras. So we know there was like around 20 million people in Latin America currently watch the show. And yes, it's like Miss Canada, but for men. So we had like formal gown, which is tuxedo, and then the dress night and the questions, and yes, the bathing suit. And they wanted to do this theme of the pyramid, because it was the first year they were doing it in Mexico. So they wanted to bring the culture. So they built these 2 Mayan pyramids on the stage. And guess what? From the 12 guys, I was one of the 2 that had to go all the way up and come down the stairs in a bathing suit. So one of the secrets that I discovered or they told me, is like, you never look down. So next time you see models and people in runways, you never look down, otherwise it looks terrible, right? You lose contact with the people. So so I have to count. I still remember there was 26 steps, right? And you have to barefoot, right? In a bathing suit, again, with no experience of exposure before. I just let go like, but it was amazing. It was an amazing experience. And from there, I got a contract with the modeling agency and with the network, organized a show for 1 year. And then I started doing some acting gigs, runway, print. Yes, I was one of those, like if you go to Costco and those like, oh, like $25 off in pants. And then they see the guy at some point. I did fashion runway, which I really love, with the Dalmatian coats and like crazy stuff. And I did also TV commercials, because in Mexico, modeling agencies, they do it. So I also auditioned for hosting of TV shows, the infamous soap operas for Mexico and so on. And in the story, you'll see how sometimes, as I was saying before, life put me there, kind of like even I didn't want to, but life put me to the pageant. And then I started doing some modeling, some TV commercials, what I wanted. Then I got I want to be an actor. I want to be in a soap opera, right? And it just didn't happen. And I auditioned, and just didn't get any bookings. So then life started telling me like, this is not your time. So I continued to do some modeling and finishing my degree in university and then start working. And then I forgot all about it for a couple of years until I came to Canada to visit a friend in Vancouver. And I was there for a month. And then when just before I was coming back to Mexico to my regular life, we went out to this club and said goodbye to our friends. And a lady came to me and said like, hey, excuse me, can I ask you something? Oh, yeah. Are you a model? Yes. Like, awesome. I want you in my agency. And I'm like, well, I'm not from here. I'm from Mexico. I'm going back tomorrow. I don't have a place to stay. I don't have a visa. I don't have anything. She's like, stay. You could work a lot here because we need Latino looking people. And there's very, very few Latino actors. And I was like, oh, so I went back home with that. It's different, like, oh, I would like to live here, right? Like when we go on vacations, we all want to live where we go because it's awesome to go on vacation. But when it's like, you could work here, it's like, it gives a different degree. So that's I just stay in my mind. So I applied to move here, and 2 years later I got my permanent visa. So I came here. That was not the only reason. There was other reasons that I wouldn't really. I wanted to really move to Canada for many reasons, including my other job. So I said, well, while I start my other job, I'm gonna start doing some TV commercials and stuff because they paid well. So I called a modeling agency and they told me, yes, we'll take you, but for commercials, here is different. You need to go to an acting agency. And I'm okay, sure. So I started modeling here too. I did a couple of runways and print work also. I did the bridal show with the tuxedos, and that was fun. And then I contacted an acting agency and I started doing TV commercials. And they pay really well. So I was like, okay, this is really good. So I started doing that. And at some point, my agent said, hey, why don't you learn real act? Like, why don't you go to workshops and start learning the real craft of acting, right? Because TV commercial is not really acting. You just sit down, it's like, Pepsi's awesome, right? $10. So I'm like, oh, well, I don't think I'll be a good actor because, I'm very honest with myself. So if I'm sad, I cannot pretend to be happy. And if I'm angry, I cannot pretend to be sad. And also, I'm not really good at pretending. And my agent just looked at me and she's like, that's not it. Like, listen, go with a photographer, take a headshot. And while he's like, she says, like, I can see you like an undercover cop kind of a character. So when the photographer is taking the pictures, start thinking undercover cop thoughts. And if you think enough, you will believe it. And if you believe it, you will project it through your eyes. And when they take that picture, people will feel it, right? That's acting. And I was like, oh, so it's not pretending, it's being. And it's not feeling, it's thinking, meaning there is feelings, right? In the end, we'll talk about later what I discovered with that, but it doesn't start with the feelings. And it's very funny because when I was doing the slides, I was remembering that sometimes I tell people like, oh, what are you doing? Like, oh, I'm a part-time actor. And they're like, I can be an actor. I can cry on the spot if you ask me how. Now that I know what acting means, I'm like, okay, so but what else? There's many other things about acting. And just crying on the spot is like saying, I can be a professional basketball player. If I go off the line, I can pass the ball really well. It's like, yeah, but you need many other things to be a professional. Anyways, so if we can go to the other slide. So I start taking, oh, there's no slides. Okay, sorry, no worries. The first one is just the intro. Perfect. I guess everyone can soon can see everything, okay? There's a chat message, anyways, that's important. Anyways, if we come to the next one, please. Perfect. So Well, I wanted to do as a joke. I don't know if you've seen these memes of they have these memes of I'm a and then a profession and then they make fun what my mom thinks about it, what my dad thinks about it, what my friends, society. So I found this one of I'm an actor, so what my friends think I do, right? So broke. What my mother thinks I do, which in my case, yes, my mom is like, what society thinks I do, what other actors think I do, what I think I do, right? This Shakespearean, really deep guy. And what I really do is we just wait on the phone, wait for the call, say, yeah. And I'm gonna talk about how difficult acting is, not just the craft itself, but also to get a gig is a really long process. And as the song says, I'm just going to shake it off because it's one of the things you need to build is rejection. And just understand that it's not about you, it's about what you need and if you fit or not, and if you're good at what you do. But anyways, so I talk about not emoting, not crying on demand, not pretending. We're not artists. Actors are not artists. A lot of people think we are. I thought we were until my acting coach said, well, not really, because to be an artist, you need to create and you need to offer something different to the world. And the way I can compare it is with music. A jazz player is an artist, because if you see jazz players and then they go and in the moment they start to create and they get into the zone and they just evolve with the music, that's very creative. A orchestra performer is not an artist, because you know who's the artist? Beethoven, or maybe a little bit the director. But the trumpet guy has to play the note that Beethoven taught him to play at the time, in the precision that is required, and that makes it more a craft. Not. Acting is kind of the same. We follow the script, unless you're doing some improv or so. That is more creative, real artistry. But if you're doing on camera acting, which is some of the experts, I'm not a theater actor. I admire theater actors because I think they're the real actors. On camera, we just show up, we say our lines and that. But theater is just to have the public looking at you and not screw it up in the moment. And if you do, just have to take it out and not make it like, did you see the actor of 10 times? No, we didn't like it, because you're really good at like hiding it and just keep going with the flow. That's real craft. But anyways, so in my story, I started with, I was very lucky to be with we have somebody. Can we mute everyone? Thank you. So I started with Matthew Harrison, which is one of the best coaches in Vancouver. This is one of his classes. And I wanted to share that because this is the emoting part, right? So I'm okay, I'm gonna be an actor. The first thing I discovered is even though we're not artists, we're craftspeople, right? We're performers. It's a very beautiful process for one, right? For oneself. In the end, the being real and not pretending, I had it the opposite, meaning I thought the situation is real, but what I'm doing my acting is pretending, right? Pretend to be happy, I pretend to be angry. And it's the opposite. The situation is the one that it's fictitious, right? Like I'm supposed to be in a castle, but it's a studio, right? That's the fictive. But what's happening to me while I'm acting with the other co-actors, that has to be real. Because if it's not real, that will see it. If you're watching a scary movie and the actor doesn't really get scared, when you're watching the movie, instead of getting scared, you laugh, right? Or if they're crying, they're supposed to be, it's like a really sad story, and the son just died, and they don't really feel what it is to have your son die in real life, then you're like, and you switch the channel, right? So the feeling is real, and the what happens in the scene is real. the situation is fictitious. So for that, you need to live life and be open. And that's one of the beautiful things I discovered. I was very closed when I was young, emotionally closed. I just didn't want to feel, right? I was like, okay, it's too hard. I don't like to feel lonely, sad, depressed. So I'm just going to close my emotions. And I was very stoic. And then they brought me into the beautiful world of acting, and it's like, no, just it's okay to feel like that. It's okay. Actually, the more like the real acting is in my day-to-day, right? The more experiences, now I know what it feels to be rejected, to be in love, to be accepted, to be desolated. The more experiences I live, the more I can see, like, oh, now I know what is losing the most important thing of your life, right? I can apply that. And when I have a scene where my son dies, I don't have a son. So I can be like, I don't have a son, so I can do it. It's like, no, I know what is losing. Losing a son or a kid or a family member is in the core similar as any other. When you lose something very important for you, right? So you can apply that into your craft. So in the moment when you're acting is all the lessons. So the more you lived, the more tools you have in your tool belt to use when you're acting, right? So that opens to, you know what, I'm just gonna go and live life to the fullest and just enjoy it. And my coach, for example, he had a car accident. But that's when actors, like, when we start getting into that world and we talk to regular people, they're like, you guys are like, actors are like really crazy, right? So telling you all of this, if you don't know all of this and then just hear this part, like my coach was saying, like, oh, I was driving in they also live in an island, right? I was driving in the island with my baby boy on the back, 2 years old boy, and there was a deer, so I had to steer, and the truck just started like rolling over, right? And he said, like, how everything starts to go in slow-mo, and he saw his kid on the room mirror, like, nothing happened really bad though. But he was thinking, this is gonna be so good for my acting. And that's an extreme caricature example, but that's what I try to incorporate into my life, right? So a month ago, I had a webinar for my other job, and it tanked. And in a way, it's like, oh, I feel so, demoralized and like, oh, this gotta be so good for my acting. And then there start to be this underlying of life is awesome, it doesn't matter what's happening. And that helped me on my life. So anyways, this exercise, so they're like, okay, you want to be an actor, you have to do the weekend intensive. Sure, okay, perfect. Exercise number 1. Grab somebody randomly. Okay, so I've done this. Sometimes it's a 45-year-old gentleman, and they're okay, you have to touch, right? Which for me, touching another guy is kind of uncomfortable. So you have to keep touching them for 2 hours. The exercise is 2 hours. And then they're like, okay, first look, like really observe the other person, right? Look at their eyes and acknowledge that they're alive and acknowledge that you're alive. And this moment is very precious because you both are alive and you're both encountering each other. But that means one day that person is not going to be alive. That means you one day are not going to be alive as well. That makes this moment even more precious, right? And then you start growing, and it's just this sensibilization of humanity, right? The most important, crucial things of our existence, right? And they're okay. So now think of the person you love most in the world. Who's that person? Just okay. My wife in my case, who also is my now that I can self-tape at home, my auditions. She is also my camera operator, director, and also, well, I've been opposed to her because I love her so much, and she is very patient because I get pretty tense when I'm doing my living. Anyways, who's the person you love most in the world? And in my case, it's my wife. So, and then you're like, okay, you have 30 seconds to tell the other person why you love the person you love most in the world, right? Convince the other person to also fall in love with that, with your person, right? Why? But not is like, oh, because she gives me pancakes in the morning. It's like, it doesn't have to do for you. Like, what special qualifications that are unique that person has for you, right? And then you start talking about it, and then these exercises are to make you more sensible to life, but also to connect with what my friends used to say, oh, I can cry on the mat. Yeah, but why are you crying is important, right? Because if you're crying because, you know, you lost your little teddy bear, it's not the same as your son died. It's not about crying, it's about what's happening inside, right? That triggers the crying. The crying is just a consequence of what happened. And even when you're on film, sometimes even on the script, it says she cries or he cries. And if you as an actor don't get there, it's better to not to cry, but to get emotionally where you should be than fake cry, because that when you're watching it, like, now flip the channel, right? So anyways, tell the person you love them. So you're telling them, then they tell you their person, it's like, it's amazing. And then it's like, okay, that person is gonna die. You're in the hospital, you open the door, they're in the deathbed, you have 1 minute to tell that person whatever you need to tell them. You're never going to tell that one, right? And it's those. But anyways, so they call it universal synergy. So love is one universal, right? Everything that's super precious for you and makes you, right? And then loss is the other universal. Losing your job, losing your health, losing somebody you care about. All that is it happens out, right? And then you go to the next part of it. Believe it. So this is like touching someone, all right? And then, okay, next part of the exercise. What you're in your final years, you made it. You made it in life. How does that mean? Right? And you're like, oh, I'm gonna be in Protection Island, and I'm looking at the ocean. There's coffee. I can smell the pancakes, and my love is there, and my kids. I can see the pictures. They're doing their life. And the more you incorporate, then and then it's like, okay, good. You're not gonna get there. You're not gonna get to your dream. And why? We all screwed up, right? We all think we're screwed up at some moments of our lives, right? Because our mom told us when we were kids, or because when we were in elementary school, some bully us, and we believe what they were saying. So deep down, there's this voice telling you, like, okay, you're gonna screw it up, which is telling me now, like, oh, you're gonna forget what you're gonna say, right? And then tell the other person, like, what do you think about it? And then you say, like, yeah, my mom always thought, which is the other two universals, the goals and the failures, right? Anyways, I'm not gonna go on, but just a little taste of what it is. The molding part is like, this is so. I want to take you to this journey, because when I started acting, I hear a lot of people that is like, oh, you're an actor, well, forgetting your lines, that's the most like if you don't forget your lines equals you're a good actor, and you forget them. There is no, that's just the start, right? How about emoting? Can we go to the next one, please? So there's many other things. So as a cool exercise, I have a small scene here, fictitious scene. I also brought this. I'm going to share it with you. It's an old show, so it's okay. But still, it says confidential. So if at the end of the session you come back to me, it will be free. This is called a. This is when you get to set. They give you one of these ones in your trailer, and it has. This is called a call sheet, which is everything. My friend Alex, who's there, who works in film, knows about this. It tells you everything about that day, what's going to happen, who's coming, which actors at what time they have to be in hair and makeup, who's the director, the producer, where the hospital goes by, at what time is sunrise, sunset, blah, blah, blah. So it's pages and pages of information of everyone that's going to be on set working, safety procedures, blah, blah, blah. And then you have the scenes that are going to be shot that day. So then I can read my scene. It's like, okay, this is how we're going to shoot this. And then you can put it here and then you just, because to remember lines, it is difficult, right? So I'm going to pass this so you can see it. But talking about what a scene is. So the other really difficult part of being an on-camera actor is this part, because they're like, oh, look at the animation, perfect. Here's your scene. And you're like, you see this, right? And you're like, what do I do with this? But, so the first thing is, that's why I put context is king, meaning, first of all, I have to analyze what's the genre. Is it a drama? Is it a mystery, right? A cop show? Is it Friends, so a comedy? And if so, what kind of show it is? Because even a comedy, Friends is very different than Seinfeld, for example. You guys know those shows. The tone is very different, the delivery, the speed, right? For example, mystery shows, they have all shows have a speed, right? So the writing has a certain speed that just as the audience, you're like, okay, I get it. And the smart shows, they just give you hints. So you're like, mostly the mystery ones, right? It's like, oh, that's the guy from the other scene. Like, the guy was behind. And so they let you put the pieces together. That's what makes it fun and interesting to watch those kind of shows. If they tell you the whole pieces, it's boring, right? However, it has the speed on a mystery show has to be enough ahead of the audience. So you try to catch up. It's like, why did she do? Was she not, without going too far? If it goes too fast than the speed of the audience, then you lost it. You're like, then you switch to what? Was she the one that was? And if you lost it, you lose interest because then it just goes so far that you're like, what happened? I don't know. So anyways, even networks have a special profile, right? So Fox, so the 4 major networks in the US are Fox, ABC, NBC, and CBS, right? Fox is a more like, they have the shows like The Simpsons and that, so you can, they like more swearing is okay, and maybe show about, the new like more gay transsexual people. ABC are like more conservative, right? So sometimes you're chosen as the first. So it's an ABC show that's very conservative, right? It's a cop show, and I'm playing, because I'm Latino, I'm the bad guy gangster, right? And sometimes it hasn't happened to me, but I know other Latino guys that they're like, it's an ABC show. You don't fit the network. You're too rough. Like for Fox, you'll be awesome. For ABC, is way more conservative. They like softer stuff, right? Hallmark, for example, Hallmark was like very, very unique in their stuff. However, lately they've been. I've been doing a few Hallmark shows and movies. There's one here, Chesapeake Shores, that shoots in Parksville, and I have seen there. And because they've been open, mostly even with COVID, it helped a lot to open for them more because a lot of American actors cannot film here, so they use Canadian actors, and we're more diverse. So they're like, okay, well, even the Latino guy with an accent, sure, come, you're gonna be the EMT guy, right? So, but anyways, so you see this, right? And what I was saying, like, let's say you're auditioning for a show like Friends, right? And you're like, okay, I know the show, I know the genre, I know the size of the role. So I'm going to talk a little bit about it in the next slide. But how big is your role? Have you heard of that? There's small roles, there's small actors. Right. There are small roles. And of course, even so much that if you see that paper that I show you, we are on numbers, right? So the lead of the show is number 1, the next one is 2, 3, 4, and they treat you, pay you, and treat you accordingly. Meaning, if you're the lead, you have a better trailer. They bring you your food to your trailer, blah, 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 blah. If you're 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, they treat you different, and so on. And then the extras are like in the bottom. So there are small. I get what they say that like it doesn't matter how, but also if you're a principal or an actor, which I'll talk a little bit later, you have to understand that it's not about you, me in this case, right? I'm just a tool for the bigger actor to keep the journey, right? So for example, you have to say your lines faster and shorter and less, because the most camera time and the most importance of the lines are on the bigger actor, because the journey is about them, right? So it's like, they want that way, officer, right? You're that guy. It's not about me. I'm just the cop, the guy helping the cop, right? The cop is maybe the lead of the show. So I'm just facilitating for the plot to move so they go that way, right? So anyways, so friends, it's like, that's what I mean. What? That's the trouble with you. No, that's the trouble with he. With you. He. No, right? So the speed and the intensity is very different than if it was a drama show. It's like, that's what I mean. What? What's the trouble with you? That's the trouble with you. With you. No, right? The tone, the speed, the intensity, the focus is very different. So anyways, you get the scene, you get the script, you do it. Normally for a TV show, it's better than commercials. Commercials, the numbers multiplied by 10. For a TV show, there's around 5,000 actors in Vancouver. From those ones, they will submit for young guy. Well, at this time, I think I will play old guy. Old guy. They will submit 500 actors. From then, the casting director will choose 100. Then the director, the network, the executives, and the producer will choose 50. And then they give the callback to 10, right? So if I go the callback, then I have to, now it's I could do it from here, self-tape, and I just send it. But before, they call me back to the room. Imagine it's a very similar room like this, but instead of all of you, it's that table, the director, and sometimes it's like James Cameron or someone like that. The producers, the casting director, 2 lights, and you're seeing, and that's it, right? And you have to come, and then you're like, oh yeah, and you're like, oh, you die or whatever is in your scene, and they're like, okay, thank you, and then you leave. I remember my other side, when you sit on the phone, that's when you sit on the phone, because from those 20, then the callback is around 5, and from then they choose 3. If you get the call, you're on one of those 3, and then it's up to the executive in the network or the movie in Hollywood to say who they choose. If you're not on those 3, they never call you. So you're just like, my life is so terrible. Anyways, that's it for this part. Now let's move to the next difficult part of what's being an on-camera actor. So I chose that picture just to give you an example of how a scene is constructed. So this is a scene, let's imagine it's 2 people breaking up in the coffee shop, right? So the scene is, he says, I've been thinking, and she's like, yeah, what? And he's like, I want to break up with you. And she's like, no, please don't. Yeah, I'm done. My other girl is pregnant, goodbye, and he leaves, right? That's the scene. So one of the most difficult things to be an on-camera actor is, this is a very short scene just for time purposes. But imagine those scenes that are like 2 minutes and a lot of things happening, and at the end, she discovered that her son died in that example, right? So she needs to collapse into the scene, right? Like the son dies, and that's what they leave you for the next scene. So what they're gonna do is, you come to set, right? Just very quickly, if you want to know a little bit about how a scene is created. The director only talks to the first assistant director, who's in charge of everyone technical, and the director only talks to the actors, no one else. So the director and the actors come to set, and he says, okay, so sit down and do the scene, right? So you sit down, and you have 70 people there just watching what you're doing. And then you are like, hey, I've been thinking, what? I want to break up with you. Oh, why? Oh, my other girlfriend is pregnant, sorry, and then he leaves, right? And then the director is, okay, good. So, and he starts talking to the first assistant director. So, what we're gonna do is first a crane shot, then we're gonna do a 2 shot, then we're gonna do the close-up this way, then we're gonna cover this, right? tip, pro tip is when you're watching a show, if you have 360 degrees, you cut the room in half, and the camera should never cross once you imaginary cut. So for example, here, if I draw my line imaginary, all the cameras have to be on this side. If I cross, everything, when you're watching everything reversed, and it's like you get lost because the sense of direction changes. Same as if you're watching a hockey game or a soccer game, the cameras are normally always on one side only, because once they cross the 180 degrees, things flip and it's very weird. Anyways, so all the crew says okay, and then the first assistant director like, all right, guys, you heard, so light, we have to do the crane shot, so you're gonna put it there, and then we need the crane here, blah blah blah. The actors leave, and then they bring they call stand-ins, because they stand in like this here, right, and then stand like this, so they can light and position the camera properly. And then that takes like an hour, and then they leave, the actors come back, and it's like, okay, we're going to shoot the scene, action. One interesting thing is you prepare. And then at that moment, it turns the vibe is very like, now, there's some productions, some feature films in Vancouver, they're $100,000 an hour cost of production, right? Everybody and then you have 16 hours or so to shoot the whole day. They have 5 scenes back to back. So it's very weird, because you as an actor, as when you get cast, like for example, you'll see a scene later of a show that I did in Calgary. They send a limousine to pick me up from my house. Then they flew me business to Calgary. When I arrived there, like the guy was with his sign of like Hell on Wheels show, and then he took us to the studio to get dressed. And then they put us in a nice hotel, like they treat you really well. Like you're walking with the umbrella, even if you're a small actor, right? You feel like, whoo, celebrity. Your trailer with your food. But it's not because you're awesome. Like those leads like Tom Cruise, and like they get paid $40 million, $20 million. Because at that moment, actually, everything's on you. And if you don't do it well, they have to do it again and again and again. And it's very expensive, or they cannot afford to just fire you. They bring somebody that actually can do it, right? But anyways, action. Then they do the scene. They do normally, the first one is called the crane shot. So when you watch a scene, next time you watch a TV show or a movie, the first thing you'll see is sometimes the scene, right? So you see the city and the cars, like, okay, they try to position you of where are they, right? So you see New York, and then you see a couple of scenes of New York, then the building, right? Like this building outside, a couple of seconds. Then you see the crane, so you can see the whole coffee shop for 2 or 3 seconds. So you, as the audience, can imagine the whole environment, right? And then they cut to the 2 shot when they start. And then when the juicy part of the scene, then you start seeing the close-ups, right? Fun fact, sometimes you see it, like we were watching a show the other day, and then it's like green cups, blue cups, green cups, blue cups. But why does that happen? Because exactly, you do the crane, the actors do the whole scene. So if it's that long one that I was telling you, and then she discovered her son dies, and she has to collapse emotionally on camera. He has to do that. And then it's okay, if you do it right, which normally you don't, like somebody screws up, like the camera, the light. So if you do it well, minimum you have to do it 8 times for that take, right? The crane, 8 times. So her son has to die on camera 8 times for that scene, right? Once they have it, it's like, okay, then you leave. The stand-ins come again, because now they're going to do the 2 shot. I'll have in the next slide the camera that does the 2 shot, right? 2 shot means you're going to see this, what you're seeing this now. This would be not a 2 shot without the camera, of course, right? Because you see the 2 people, that's what's called, right? So they now light and position the cameras for the 2 shot, 45 minutes to an hour. Then they call you, Raul, we're ready for you. And then you come back. You stand up, you sit down in your mark, and all over again another 8 times, which means if your son is dying, you have to walk in, right? Collapse 8 times. And then you do one close-up, and then you do the other. Another fun fact is when they're shooting, for example, the close-ups, you can see the camera shooting her close-up, right? First of all, he's cheating. So meaning they're not really sitting like this, he's sitting like this, so the camera can see her, and maybe the camera can see his shoulder. Normally, when you do a close-up, you want to see the shoulder and a little bit of the head of the other actor to give you perspective, right? So you don't see it here. I was trying to find a picture, right? I couldn't. Everything behind this guy, that's all the 70 people that I was saying you, they're just watching they move all these tables here, maybe, right? So here, this is a disaster behind it, right? Makeup people are there watching in the monitor, blah, blah, blah. And then they do what is called the reverse, which means they're going to switch the camera to do now his close, right? So now they grab all of this and they move it to the other side. So this side looks like a restaurant. And it's very funny to see how they move things. Sometimes, I mean, I arrive to set, like in TV commercials, you get to a house and you're like, what a beautiful house. And they're like, everything's fake. Like, this is not the real, like the house we have, like we rented to do this. It's not the kitchen, it's not the chairs, it's not the table, it's not nothing, not except the walls, pretty much. Everything is fake. They come and they make a different one according to how the director wants. Anyways, can you imagine? 32 times at least. They said Woody Allen sometimes he's 80 takes. Your son has to, and what a lot of actors do is if you have a really high intention scene, high emotional, you save yourself. You do it like 50% in the crane, in the two shot, in the other person's, because when it's your time for your close-up, that's when you give you. Otherwise, if you're the last one, the close-up, you're exhausted already. It's not the same, right? So that's how a scene is constructed. If we go to the next one, please. Now, as a final thought about the difficult part of acting, I want to talk a little bit about what's called the arc, right? So I watched, any of you have watched this movie, Crazy Stupid Love? No? It's a really good movie, it's good. Anyways, long story short, he's an IT guy, but he's very insecure. He doesn't give up kind of with life. He has his wife and kids, doesn't care about them too much. And then his wife is like, you know what I want to do? If I screw up the plot, I haven't watched it for a long time. But the important part is something happens to him, which I think is his wife. Says like, okay, I think I'm done. Then he met Ryan Gosling, who's like super good looking, well dressed. He just goes out to meet girls and then goodbye the next day. And then Ryan Gosling wants to convert him like him. And then at the end, so if you see the arc, so normally it's the journey of a hero, right? In most movies. So the guy in this story, he's in the status quo is like, he's just an IT guy, he gets bored of life, blah, blah, blah. And then the incident is like, his wife is like, you know what? I don't feel it anymore. You don't have that passion that I fell in love with you anymore. And like, and then he goes, the obstacles is like, he wants to become this pickup artist and meets Ryan Gosling, and he sucks at it, of course, because he has no experience, and he starts to be really good. But then he realized that that's not what he wanted. He doesn't want to be a pickup artist. He wants to be with his family. And then that helped him, that going out and that excitement of life that Ryan Gosling had helped him realize that he needed that spark to be alive again, right? And that's when he goes back to his wife. That's the end of the thing, right? Incredible. So a movie, a regular feature film has around, calculate like in the pictures that you're seeing there, 1 page of script equals 1 minute in the movie or in the TV show, right? So if you have a 23 minute TV show, which is 30 minutes on TV because of the commercials, it's 23, 25 pages and so on, right? So a movie is around 100 pages, 120 pages. And with 120 scenes, let's say, right? One scene per page. So don't think they record they shoot the movie in order, right? Because it's like, okay, so there's scene 1, 2, 13, 15, 78, 85 are in his house, right? So they rent a house. It costs them around $20,000 a day, right? So they're like, okay, it's 8 scenes, so we need 3 days. So they rent a house and they shoot all those scenes in those 3 days because it's the most cost effective, right? And then they move to the next set. Oh, it's in the diner, that's 2 scenes, and then I just keep going. Which means you arrive, you see that one, you arrive, you're like, okay, today we're gonna shoot scenes 75, 2, 13, and 50. So if you're the lead, like smaller parts like the ones I do are not that difficult, but it's like, they went that way, officer. So it doesn't matter if he's here, here, here. I just have to do the same thing. I said, drum roll back. But he is the lead of the show. So he needs to know, if you watch the movie, please watch it with this thing in mind. I think it was dead on. The first thing they shoot is 78, and he has already his face of realization of like, this is what I want in my life. I feel complete, I feel in peace. And I took that picture. You can see it, but he's still well dressed now, right? Then they should scene 2 when he's a goof still. So they change this help, right? So costumes and makeup and help you to look that. But he needs to, he's more crouched. If you see there, the hair is different. His eyes are more like insecure, blah, blah, blah. And then he shoots that one where he's like Mr. Big Shot, right? He knew exactly. So now that you know that he's shooting not in order, he needs to know, okay, for this scene, this is where he is in the arc. So I need to look this way, and the character needs to project this level of energy. Otherwise, like crappy actors use, and it doesn't make sense because they're supposed to be the hero at that time when they didn't know, and they don't look heroic. So like, right? Anyways, just to finish the character level. So I was saying there are more small parts. How it's all about the plot, right? The story. So let's grab a random story. Batman, right? It's in the name. It's a story about a guy that's Batman, right? So Batman, the guy that plays Batman is the lead, right? Romeo and Juliet, well, there's 2 leads because it's a story of Romeo and Juliet, right? But the whole point is for them to fall in love. And they try to get together, and there's a lot of people helping and a lot of people avoiding, right? The obstacles, right? The calculating. So they're like, no, you cannot, that is forbidden because we hate each other, right? So all of those people that are close to the leads or the heroes are supporting leads because they support the story to happen or not to happen, like you wrote, right? At the end of the story is they actually didn't end up together, right? Because they die. I spoiled the Then a principal actor, it's an actor that helps the story in a smaller chunk of the movie or TV show, the story to happen. For example, you're the husband of one of the supporting leads, and you're there in 5 or 6 scenes when she's at home, and then you see that she's very troubled because the husband is an alcoholic. So when she's at work, which is where the real plot happens, then you understand that's why she's so aggressive and bitter, right? And then actor is, they went that way opposite. So normally actor roles, they don't have a name. It's like girl in club number 1, cop number 2, bad guy, right? Principals, you normally have a name. But the other part is if one how they consider is there's number of lines that you say, and that's how much they pay you. But if they chop off your part, does the story still make sense, right? So they went that way, officer. If they cut you and they you just don't know they went that way. It doesn't matter. They still catch it in the other block. You still understand the movie, right? You see Batman is Batman. So that's the other way of differentiate all those letters, right? Okay, can we watch the? I'm gonna hurry up because I know we're spending. So pretty quick. Another pro tip that I discovered when I was shooting. Every time you see, unless there's a reason why, every time you see a night shoot, the floor is wet. Unless they don't want it for some reason. Because it looks beautiful. A lot of it is the story, and a lot of it is how it looks, right? Was it the director is like how it the director of photography, right? And always, yeah, at night, a wet floor looks better than it. Even if you see the lights reflecting, and that helps a lot to give some light. So what they do is before they shoot the scene, they bring these huge water pipes and just start like spraying, and then you start doing the scene. And if it dries up, you stop, and then they bring the pipe again and just wet it again. Right? I thought it was a fun fact to know. So, anyways, this is the camera crew, right? These Panasonic Panavision cameras are not like the cameras we use. Kind of like cars, right? Race cars don't have a lot of gadgets we use in regular cars because they know what are they doing with their car. So if we had a car like that, we'll just break it in the first change of gear, right? Same. These cameras, for example, they don't have focus, autofocus. This guy is focus. This little gadget with the brown thing, it's the focus. So he has his little monitor that you can see here, right? So he sees the scene. So I was asking before we started to put a mark. I have my mark here because I know this is where I'm okay in the zoom camera, right? So if I was shooting a movie, what they do is the stand-in comes, right? And they stand here, and then if they already set up the camera where the zoom camera is, then the guy that is in charge of zoom will have his little measuring tape. And he measures how far is this, and then you stand up here, and he's like, okay, you're focused, and they put your mark on the floor, right? So when you're the actor, it's like, okay, guys, I'm gonna tell you what, you stand up here, and you know I'm actually on frame and on focus. You can screw up lines, you can do a lot of stuff, but you cannot miss your mark. Because if I miss my mark, guess what? I'm not in the movie, right? And this camera has focus, but if I'm here, a regular this camera will not have me on focus, and that's the only thing that I can do anything else. But if I'm not sharp on the image, then how are they going to see my eyes projecting and everything else I need to do, right? So that's the focus guy. Now you see this little card that the cinematographer is sitting, right? Those cameras also don't have zoom, auto zoom. So there's a guy behind that's the muscle. He is the zoom, right? So when they want to zoom in, that guy starts moving the car like this, and then with the Panavision. So sorry, I'm gonna have to. My first real gig in a real TV show called Fringe, I was supposed to dismantle this bomb, right? I was bomb guy, right? So, and then the bomb dropped, and I had to grab the thing, and the lead actors were behind me, so I have to turn around and give the so reason number 25, that is very difficult to be an actor, is I did the first one, so they have the close-up on the other, they have my scene where I'm dismantling the thing, right? And the camera is behind the panel, so cool. And then it's like, well, we're ready for your close-up, because when I do this, I have to turn around. So I come to my mark, and I realize that my mark is here, and the camera is here, right? So I was here, and I have to do this and give it to the actors without the first, like if you're in acting class, okay, acting 101, don't look at the camera, right? I had an acting coach that he was in a soap opera in the US, and the camera was here, and there was an actor there, and he did this, fire. They fired him from the soap opera for doing it. So it's number one, right? So I have the camera here, but it's not this camera here. is that camera here, right here, with that guy behind, and this guy next to him, and the other guy next to him, and right, and then 25 people behind just watching you, and still you have to forget about all of them and do your line to the audience, right? Okay, that's it for now. Just a quick, also very quick. Those cards, they were like if you see they hold the camera, those cameras are super heavy, right, and expensive. But also the guy sits down here in the little stool there. They were originally made for the US carriers, the big boats with the airplanes. Those, they use them to carry bombs and put them on the planes. So the arm had the bomb, which is very heavy, but they're German actually. And they're so stable that they can have a bomb in the arm and they just lift it and put it on the plane. So now they just, instead of a bomb, it's a camera, right? They change the head of the arm. And the others too, and now we use it for film. Okay, I'm gonna hurry, I promise. So a couple of things from stunts. A lot of people ask me about stunts. So I had a couple of shows that I shot, a couple of scenes. This one, if we click it again, you will run from the video. I hope you can hear with my Zoomer friends.
So Marcos, see, I can be reasonable. I'll take that.
So you see my tattoo there? 2 hours every day on hair and makeup, so they can actually, because it's on the plot, there's a reason why the tattoo is there, right? But anyways, you saw the first scene where I go out of the van. So I read the script. I'm like, okay, so he's on the van. The lead, who's Rebecca Romaine, comes and tries to stop me. So it read on the script. He opens the door and kicks the gun out of her, goes out. She grabs him, kicks him on the stomach, and then she pushes into the van, and then she throws into the right. So I was like, yeah. Stunts to do that, right? So my son, I think I have a picture with him. He used to be the stunt for Superman or in the show Smallville. He's a blonde guy. So there's no Latino looking stunts that are 6'2". So they always give me a non-Latino, and they have to dye his hair, like put a little bit of bronzer. But anyways, so I'm like, he's gonna do the stunts. I'm just gonna show up and do like, yeah, cut, I don't know. No, so they're like, okay, to the scene. So this is John, the stunt coordinator. So he's like, let's go to the stunts in blocking, right? I was like, yes, you have to do this. So door 1, then go out, then need 2, then 3. You have to pretend you're the one that actually hits the van, right? Because she cannot really hit you. He's like, the person that's getting hit normally is the one that has to do the big movements. And that's what sells the movie, right? And I was like, what? So how they do it is they do the whole scene first with the actors, both actors. And she was actually super nice. She's like, I'm very, very, very sorry. So just tell me if I'm too like, no, just go, right? Okay. So action, and then we go, right? And I'm like, open the door. And then I no, just open the door, right? Like, okay, I don't know how to do that. Then when they finish, then they bring the stunt performer for her. So I do it with her. So she's the one that does the more. Like we do the same, but just the stunts, they do it professionally and hard, right? Then they brought Rebecca and my stunts, and then they do the part like that. So normally they do the close-ups on her, so you only see his back, right? And then they bring the 2 stunts and they do the whole thing. So what you see there is a combination of all those 4 parts together. They just second of me in the close-up when I'm getting hit, but the other parts is the other guy doing, right? But what I learned is, if you're an actor, you still do stunts. She's the stunt for Rebecca one day. Next one.
When? I must say so. Oh, no. Oh, yeah. What about, Life's a Mystery? Dos.
Maybe you do got some poetry in you after all, see?
Tres!
I'm not seeing what my back is. So as you can see here in the picture, these are called squibs. And they're the fake blood with the explosion. So it was amazing to do that scene. Then the horse goes out running and he gets hanged, and then he cuts the thing and falls, and there's a lot of guns shooting and everything. It was an awesome scene to do. Even though my part was very, very tiny. But they brought real guns. Most of the times I know you heard now with the recent situation that have happened about real guns and stuff. So I know what they're talking about because there is a gun coordinator or firearms coordinator. They brings the guns to you and they're like, okay, look, they have to, by law, show that it's empty. Then you as a performer have to grab it and check that it's actually empty. They rent them like everything else. The horses are rented, the guns are rented. Right? So there's somebody that owns those and they're like, oh my God. And I was like, we pay for it. It doesn't matter. But they're made of the owner case like these are actually real guns from that era. They're made of silver. They were beautiful. And they have different types of shells, right? Of course, they take the tip, which is what kills you. But there's shells that just make the sound, and there's one that has a little bit of powder. So they throw smoke. So you actually see the smoke coming out of the gun. This one had those ones. And then they had 5 lasers, exactly the same for me. And what you see on the back there, it's the squid, which is they have fake blood and they have a metal plate that they put the fake blood so it doesn't hurt me. And then a charge, and then they cover it, right? And then they put it inside the suit. They have 5 exactly like that. And the reason being is if you see in the scene, I have the guy pointed, right? And what he does is this, and then he makes me shoot myself, right? That's what happens. So they gave me the blazer. It has a charger. They put 2 cables, and then around it had a huge battery here. And then there's a guy that was hiding there in the bushes with a remote control. So they had to time perfectly when we do this and the gun shoots, the smoke that you see from here has to match 1 millisecond before the squid blows out and you see the blood. Otherwise, which happened the first scene, he pushed it like a millisecond too early, and you see the blood coming out before the smoke. So you roll another cylinder, then I have to change and then do it all over. But it was very, very interesting to see. You actually, I felt like this in my back, and that helps you react better, right? To the I always made fun of the guys that we always say, like when we were talking about the level of actors, if you're an actor or a principal, you have to die fast, right? It's one like that one. Right? You don't complain, you don't cry. If you're a lead or a supporting lead, you die slow, right? Yes. There's more. So, anyways, my daughter always laugh about this, and the other one because it's like. Next one, please. I think it's another one. Because this is the same thing.
Both the same.
Say so.
There you go. So this is the infamous Sargon. In my journey, just to finish that part, I think I'm done. From this guy in university that didn't want to be, in this world, after 15 years of doing this, I got the opportunity to be Sargon the Sorcerer, which is a DC comic, so superhero fans. This is one of the super villains. He had his comic in the 50s, as you can see there. So I don't think you can see it, but in the picture, this is Harvan. And he has a turban with, in the story, he had some powers, but then he found that um, ruby is the ruby of life, right? And that enhanced his power. So he can think of something like if I think walls, right? The ruby makes the walls happen. And that's the superpower. And then he was a superhero and became a supervillain. But fun fact, have it here. This is the original. So what they did is like, oh, nowadays, turbans, either way. So no turbans, just long hair. And this is the original Sargon ring. I kept it. It's like a 2 buck ring. And it offered before. I was never wearing it, but it was right before I came here. $2. Don't think I stole a jewel, but yeah, it was amazing to play a villain character, right? And play with the Flash, which is it was a cross of many shows, including the Flash. So if we click, we can see the main scene pretty much.
It is finally March. I'm sorry. You good? Please protect your brothers now. Is nothing sacred?
It was a smart move, distracting all the flags with giant flags that people should have told you. Bingo, he's off limits.
This is a stunt. Because he is not me. Yeah, that's all I have to say for that one. That has been one of the best experiences in my life. And to finish, I think we have yeah, a lot of people just finish. A lot of people ask me like, oh, have you acted with big name actors, blah, blah, blah. I show you a couple of examples. So Liam Neeson, Jennifer Connelly, Rebecca Romaine, Catherine Heigl, Toni Collette, and John Leguizamo. So I met many others, but I have a quick fun story with all of them because we all want to hear the story. So Liam Neeson is one of those guys that I was on set. We were waiting, right, sitting down in this supposed to be fake warehouse where we were gonna kill him. It was for the 18 movie. And I was sitting down and I felt like me. And he came in behind me. He is one of those with the X Factor famous for when he comes to our room, you feel it. He's like this, first of all, he must be like 6'5" or something like that. And he came with his entourage and his assistant, and but he has that presence so much that I didn't see him. Like once you see him, you're like, oh, and because he's Liam Neeson, and he always plays this super strong. He is like that in real life, and he has that presence. Opposed to him is Jennifer Connelly. So I don't know if you watch a couple of movies where she has been in there. She's a fantastic actor. But we were in the day the air stood still, and we were waiting for her, right? And then suddenly this little lady comes with her big coat, look average to me. And I was like, oh, Jennifer, welcome. And she's like, oh, that's it. Oh, that's it. She has that ability. Okay, let me finish the story now. So they're like, okay, you're ready for the scene? Yeah, she's supposed to be a teacher in a university, and students sitting there, like watching the lecture, blah, 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 right? And then it's like, okay, that's your position. She's like, oh, okay, yeah, thank you. Here's my coat. Yes, okay. So ready, Jennifer? Yes, action. Boom, 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 cut. But she turns it on and off. I heard about it before. Like some people are very shy. Like Keanu Reeves, for example, he's famous for being very shy. But he gets on set on our stage and boom, they shine. It's incredible to see. You actually feel like a switch turning on and off. It was amazing. Rebecca, well, you saw my scene with her. Catherine Hagel, she's famous because she was banned for many years on film because she has this temper. But she was very nice to me, actually. We met it's very weird because sometimes, normally I met them in the trailer of hair and makeup because we're doing a similar scene. You go at the same time to get your hair made. So they have a few seats in the trailer where some people start doing their hair and their makeup, blah, blah, blah. And so she was already, because in that show, Firefly Lane, she changes times, so 70s, 80s, and 90s, I think. So she changed their hair color, so they were dyeing her hair. It's very weird because it happened with Rebecca, Catherine, and a couple of other people where you know who they are, right? And then you come into the trailer and they're like, to meet you, I'm Rebecca. I'm like, they're like, yeah, I know. Well, you have to play it cool because you're working with them, right? Like, oh, yeah, John Raul, yeah. Think better, yeah. So it was very, very interesting. And Tony Collette and John Leguizamo, I don't know if you recognize them, but she won Oscars and she's a fantastic actress. Very smart. So I recently had a show last year with her, and it's supposed to be a hospital scene, and there's an MRI machine, and I'm the MRI technician, and they're behind me because they're the parents of the girl taking the MRI, and there's a doctor here, blah, 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 right? And John is awesome. As soon as he arrived, he's like, hey, amigo, you speak español? Sí, ¿de dónde? México? Me too. We chat the whole day, super nice. And he's like, oh, this is awesome, it looks incredible. Then the other doctor, who's like a local Canadian famous actress, she was like, oh, this is great. She arrived and she's like, it was a Sunday. We have to shoot on a Sunday because it was a real hospital. So they have to, when these nurses work, they have to move the area, right? So anyways, she arrives and she's like, this is it? You make me come here for this? But anyways, the interesting part is at some point we're waiting, they were changing the camera lens or something. So I was sitting there because I'm the technician in the computer. And they're standing up, and the conversation, I was like, these guys. So she's like, hey, memoir. Do you already wrote a memoir? And he's like, I did, but it was a mistake. Oh, really? Why? Well, because I didn't, they're in my 40s, and I still had a lot of things to live. So I think it was too early. I'm thinking of writing my memoirs too. I'm like, oh my God, because the next day, these guys are already like talking about memoirs and books and everything. So that was amazing. I'm gonna cut it short. So thank you very much, everyone. We're going out to the chat.
Anyone want to go?
Questions?
That group and
Thanks. Everyone want to be an icon?
And any questions on?
Online? No? That means I bore everyone or very clear, or they left the room.